What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video. And before I begin, I want to just apologize for some of the gameplay that you're about to see, because I am not the best with this deck. This is a burn deck, and this is for Chaos format. And I do think that burn might have a place in Chaos. I mean, there are some very interesting interactions, and if you're just turboing through your deck, trying to draw into your powerful burn traps, then the game could be over pretty quickly. And there are a couple different ways to build burn. The build that I'm using in this video is more of an aggressive burn deck. You know, we're playing Morphing Jars to draw deeper into our deck, to draw into our burn traps. We're playing the Yakugari Pandas plus the Ojomatrios to get in for damage that way. And so this is one way to build the deck. There's another way where you just sort of slow down the game to a crawl, playing things like Gravity Bind, Messenger Piece, etc. And you just rely on the effect of things like Stealth Bird or Wave Motion Cannon to deal the majority of your burn damage. These are two different ways to play the deck. I like this version a little bit better. As I think the other version is a little bit too passive, and that's a little bit easier to sort of dismantle. But I think that both of them could potentially have promise in this format, and there are a large amount of players who know how to play Burn and could probably play it a little bit better than I do. Unfortunately, Burn is not my, best sort of deck. I'm still learning it, and yeah, so that leads to some suboptimal gameplay, as you'll see in the video here. I also think this build is a bit suboptimal. I mainly built it this way because I wanted to show off Stealth Bird, which is a level 3, 700 attack, 700 defense point monster that came out in Invasion of Chaos. It says once per turn, you can change this card to face down defense position. When this card flips summoned, inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. So this is sort of a very quick clock on your opponent if they can't actually deal with this. They'll be taking 1000 damage every turn if they can't flip this up on their own turn or clear it. And if you have multiple of these, it can deal even more damage per turn. So if you're able to set this up, then this is very good, and you can win the game potentially pretty quickly. But there is some flaws to this. For instance, this card does lose to Torrential Tribute, as if your opponent just sets a Torrential Tribute, you flip summon Stealth Bird, they fire Torrential Tribute, your Stealth Bird is gone. Also, Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer is very popular in this format, and that does beat over Stealth Bird. So I have the Stealth Bird in here. For game 1, I play the Stealth Bird package, hope that they're not really on too heavy of a Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer package, and then for games 2 and 3, I side into Desk Walls instead, because 1800 can wall up against their Kaikus a bit better. I think there might be some other potential ways to build this deck that are probably a bit better than this, but Stealth Bird is a very popular card, and so I wanted to sort of show it off here the best that I could. For the rest of the deck, it's pretty similar to the Burn deck that I showed off in Vampire format, because the deck didn't really receive too many new inclusions besides the Stealth Bird, and some various like stalling cards like Stumbling, etc. So going through the card by card, we've got Fiber Jar to reset the game after you've dealt a bit of burn damage to your opponent and gone through your resources. Triple Yakugari Panda to pair with the Ojomatrios. We've got Double Morphing Jar to draw deeper into our deck, a Sangan, a Sinister Serpent, Triple Stealth Bird, and a Witch of the Black Forest. For these spells, I have a Change of Heart here. I figure this can get in some decent burn damage if your opponent has a powerful monster on their side of the field. Also, if they bring out a Kaiku, it's going to be very good. You can change part of their Kaiku, banish some cards out of the grave, and prevent them from going into a Chaos Monster. And if they already have a Chaos Monster on field, you can change part of that Chaos Monster and either use it to banish itself or use it to go for a big damage push. So I figured it was good to include here. We've also got Confiscation and Forceful Sentry. No Delinquent Duo in the main deck. We've got it in the side deck for if we're going first. But the reason I didn't want it in the main is because it does cost 1000. It is a random discard. You don't get hand knowledge of your opponent's stuff. And, people are playing Sinister Serpent, people are playing Chaos Monsters, and, Delinquent Duo can give them Chaos Typing and Grave. So I didn't really want to put this in the main. I do have it in the side deck here, though if you're going first, you can bring this in. And we've got Dark Hole, Graceful Charity, Mirage Nightmare with triple MST to go with it, Monster Reborn, Pot of Greed, Raigeki, and Forceful Sentry, as I mentioned. For the traps, we get Ceasefire, Imperial Order, Triple Dutch Dirt, a Magic Cylinder, Nightmare Wheel, Ojomatrio times 3, Ring of Destruction, and Triple Secret Barrel. We could have also put in a Mirror Force here. Mirror Force is kind of counterproductive for this deck because you've got these gestures here, you've got the Ceasefire, you also got these Nightmare Wheels, and oftentimes you will be Nightmare Wheeling a monster in attack mode, so it's a bit awkward with Mirror Force there. So I don't have it in the main deck or in the side deck even, but I do think it's something that you can include if you want to. For the side deck, it's a bit weird. I've got the Triple Disqual to bring in for these Stealth Birds, as I mentioned. We've also got Triple Kaiku in case our opponent's on a bit more of a Turbo Chaos build. I feel like against the slower Chaos decks, this is ultimately fine to have in the side deck, but If your opponent's just going all in on Chaos, maybe playing Chaos Sorcerers as well, then the Kaikus can be good to bring in. We've also got this Cannon Soldier here just to deal miscellaneous burn damage. We used to have Scapegoat in the side deck as well, which would pair better with the Cannon Soldier. But I do think that having a searchable Cannon Soldier for a game that you know will be a grind can be pretty good. We got the duo, as I mentioned. We got triple True Nade and a Harpy Feather Duster here. This is mainly for Royal Decree after siding. You could also include things like Double Snare here, as that deals with Royal Decree, and a Jinzo as well. So that's something to consider for siding in the future, but I think that this is a decent package overall. Also, True Nade puts more cards in your opponent's hand to discard off something like Morphing Jar, which can potentially come up. We've also got triple Torrential Tribute here as well. And then the Fusion deck is here. You know, it's good to have this filled out for any particular magical scientist matchups, but this is the standard sort of fusion toolbox that I've mentioned in my other videos. So check out those if you want more details on it. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Again, I don't think that this deck is the most optimal thing in the world. There are definitely improvements that can be made, but I'm not a burn player. I'm not the best at sort of optimizing this style of deck or even playing this style of deck. So I encourage any burn players out there to sort of dive into this format and try and build a brew that's a bit better than this, because they definitely do exist. And I just did my best, and hopefully my best was decent enough to get us some wins here. Okay, we got a game against Dump Truck here, a frequent guest to the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to dive into the games here and see how we do. We're going to lose the rock players, so we go second. But this is a great opening hand here. Opponent's just going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Geometry, which is pretty good. We're going to go for the Pot of Greed here, draw 2. We draw Stealth Bird, which is pretty cool. We can get that set up. We're going to go for a Confiscation here, trying to rip something good out of their hand. And we see that they're on a DD Warrior Lady, Mystical Space Typhoon, Monster Reborn, and Snatch Steal here. This is a bit awkward. I think of these, we care most about the Reborn, because I can get them back something. We got Ring to deal with the DD Warrior Lady. Snatch Steal is not really that useful against our deck, and MST doesn't really do much against our current hand either. So we get a peek at their hand, and we do indeed think about it for a bit, and we do just take the Reborn there. So we get to pitch the Reborn out of their hand. They won't be able to get back the DD Warrior Lady after we ring it, and we're just going to set the Stealth Bird, set Secret Barrel, set our Geometry, and set Ring of Destruction, pass back to our opponent here. We don't want to lose everything to a Harpy Feather Duster, so that's why we keep the Dark Hole in hand. Opponent's going to bring out that DD Warrior Lady, which we knew about, and they're going to flip the switch here. They're going to attack in. We've got this Ring of Destruction to deal with the Warrior Lady, so that'll do a 1500 to them, and they're just going to set another pass back to us. We draw a Secret Barrel, which is pretty good. We're going to go for Stealth Bird here, deal 1,000. That will go through, but they do have Torrential Tribute, and this is what I was mentioning in the deck breakdown. Torrential Tribute does stop Stealth Bird, unfortunately. And it is at 3 copies, so it makes it a bit of a harder sell for this sort of burn deck. Opponent's going to search a Breaker the Magical Warrior, which is ultimately pretty fine by us, since we've got plenty of chainable cards here. So we're just going to set this Morphing Jar. Also set the Dark Hole. This does telegraph that we've got Morphing Jar. But, you know, I don't really care about telegraphing it. I just kind of want to, you know, play everything. If they've got, like, you know, a way to clear the Morphing Jar now, then, you know, we can Dark Hole them potentially. Yeah, maybe I should have kept it in hand if they Breaker the latest back row, and they've got a way to deal with Morphing Jar. We could be in a pretty tough spot. But our opponent's going to bring out that Breaker. They're going to fire it and hit the Geometry. So we're just going to chain the Geometry. Give them 3 tokens there, and they're going to attack into the Morphing Jar. That is fine. We pitched some good cards, Dark Hole and Mirror Force. Good to see those gone. And we draw a pretty good hand as well, and I think we can actually win the game here, potentially. They're going to go for a Graceful Charity, draw 3, pitch 2 Thunder Dragons, hard drawn. Oof, always hurts. And they're going to set another pass back to us. Now, if they don't have a way to, like, sort of blind snipe our back row here, we do just win the game, because Justice deals 2,000. Secret Battle deals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then plus an additional card next turn, 11. So that's 2,200. 2,200. So that's 6,400 total. So we can just win the game through that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to think, and we're just going to set the Stealth Bird, set the Justers, set this Ceasefire, pass back to them. If they do hit the Justers, so that's unfortunate, but we do have 1,000 damage off the Ceasefire, and the Secret Barrels do drop them down to 100 total. And if they attack in to our Stealth Bird with their Breaker, then they'll take 100. If they don't, we flip a Stealth Bird, deal 1,000. So I feel pretty good about this. In standby, though, we are going to fire Secret Barrel, and Justers. If they've got Decree set, then that's really rough for us, but it looks like we do indeed manage to take game 1. I think that's pretty much the ideal game 1 for this deck. So we got pretty lucky there. I mean, maybe not lucky, but the deck can produce these sorts of hands, and we can win pretty easily if we do draw those sorts of hands. Now, games 2 and 3 will be a lot tougher for us because our opponent does have Road to Creep, so I actually sided accordingly. I brought in a Harpy's Feather Duster and a Giant Trunade, replacing Confiscation and Forceful Sentry because we are going second, so those cards are a little bit less good for us. And I also brought in the Desk Walls instead of these Stealth Birds. So our opponent's going to go for a Pot of Greed here, draw 2, fire Forceful. So they do get a look at our hand. They're going to take the Ojamatrio, which is quite unfortunate, as Ojamatrio is very good for us. They're going to bring out Kaiku, set 1, pass back to us. We draw Ceasefire here. We're just going to set the Morphing Jar, set 3, pass back to our opponent. We keep the Trunade in hand, as we've already got the Harpy's Feather Duster to clear their back row, and I figure I want to bluff that it might not be Morphing Jar. So I just set those pass back to our opponent, and they're going to go for Raigeki on our set, and they do hit the Morphing Jars. They bring out a DD Warlord attack in for 3,300 here, and we will take it all. So we will lose the Morphing Jar Engrave as well, which is unfortunate if we draw Fiber Jar later on, but we draw another Morphing Jar, which is kind of funny. We're going to Raigeki their board just in case. We're going to set the Morphing Jar, set a Trunade, pass back to our opponent. And they've got Graceful Charity, but it's quite unfortunate for us. They could draw into a way to clear the Morphing Jar. They're going to pitch a Snatch and a Reborn. The Snatch isn't really that good against us, and they do have this Darkle here to clear our set. They're going to set one of their own, pass back to us. That's a bit suspicious for me, because I figure the only reason they do that is if it's something like Magician of Faith or something, and I don't want them getting back the Graceful Charity or the pot. So I'm just going to go for the Ceasefire here, and we do lose out on a bit of damage, but it is indeed the Magician of Faith, so I'm very glad I did that. We're going to set the Jetsters, pass back to our opponent. They're going to pitch a Thunder Dragon here, add 2 Thunder Dragons to hand, and they're going to tribute out that Thunder Dragon and attack in for 1,600. We're in a really tough spot. Losing those Morphing Jars was really rough for us. We draw Sinister Serpent, which is okay. We can set that, buy us a little bit of time, hopefully. Opponent's going to change of heart though, and this will be the end of the game, as they can distribute off that Serpent for a Thunder Dragon and attack in for 3,200. So that's going to be the end of the game for game 2. Much rougher game there than in game 1, but it does show that like the deck might potentially have issues if it doesn't draw into what it needs to draw into, and that definitely was the case there. So we're going to go into game 3. Hopefully we can do a little bit better here. And we're going to go first here. We draw a really good hand. We want to see all 3 of these traps. And we also draw Forceful plus Comfy to rip apart their hand. We're going to go for the Forceful Sentry here. Look at what they're working with. And this is a bit of a tricky one. They've got Witch, Decree, Space Typhoon, Mirage, and Nobleman of Crossout. Now, this is a bit tricky because the Witch can allow them to search out powerful things from their deck, which can be annoying for us, especially if they sided in Jinzo. And we don't want them to add Jinzo to hand. Even if they don't search out Jinzo, it can allow them to get aggressive, and we don't want that. So I think we got to Forceful back the Witch, and then we can Comfy away the Decree, as Decree is also really threatening. So we're going to send that Decree to grave, and now we know they've got Knock, Mirage, and MST here. We're going to summon out the Witch to play around Knock, set 3, pass back to our opponent. If they don't draw a monster, we get in for 1,100 damage next turn. That's pretty good. They're going to set 3, fire the Mirage. Now, 2 of the sets are MST and Knock. We just don't know about the third one, but it should be fine. They're going to draw 4 off this Mirage here, and we're going to allow that to happen. We're going to bring out this Gaikugari Panda. Just get aggressive here. If they've got like Raigeki or Dark Hole or Mirror Force, then we get to search out the Witch, so it's not that bad. We're going to attack in for 1,900, pass back to them, and then in standby phase, they're going to go for this MST and the Mirage. Now, we could have potentially fired a Secret Barrel and a Geometry here, just to sort of deal damage when they've got 9 cards. But I want to save that for a little bit. Maybe I should have just fired it here, though, because they would have had 12 cards total, so that's 2,400, which is a fair amount of damage. I also would have gotten the trio on the field. But I don't know. I think this is fine. Them not knowing about the trio is still pretty good, because then if they attack into Panda, then we can trio as a battle trick, basically. So I think this is ultimately fine. They're going to go for Pot of Greed here, draw 2, and they're going to bring out a DD Warrior Lady attack into our Witch. That will clear the Witch, unfortunately. And then they're going to set 1 at the end phase. We're going to go for the trio here, because we figure that set could be a Decree. They drew a lot. We do know that they're on Decree, and we want to fire our traps before the Decree actually gets online. So, you know, we could have also waited until we drew like an MST or something to stop a Decree. But I figure this is a bit better because, I mean, I guess we have a 3 out of 33 chance of drawing the MST. But knowing that they're on things to stop our deck, I kind of want to go before they have actually had a chance to do anything. And the only way this play is really super punished is if that original set that they had is also Decree, which would have been a very lucky top deck on their part. So we're going to go for Trio. Unfortunately, their original top deck there was a Decree, so we get punished for this play, unfortunately. We're going to Chain Secret Barrel to just get in that damage while we can. And we draw an MFC, so oof, that is unfortunate. Maybe this time we should have waited to fire those plays, but I do think that, like, the chances of them having drawn the Decree earlier versus the chances of us drawing the MST later, I feel like we had better chances of going for the Trio's barrel play before than drawing the MST here. So I stand by that play, even though it didn't work out. And yeah, we're just going to switch the Panda to defense, set the MST in case we do want to use our Just Desserts at any point, but no real need to use that yet. They're going to bring out a Kaiku, hit over our Panda, and this is just really rough. We're on the back, but again, we draw Nightmare Wheel, though, so that can stop the Kaiku there. We do have the MST to deal with the Decree, and that's pretty good for us. Our opponent's going to fire Harpy's Feather Duster. That is really unfortunate. Now, we chain MST. What we should have done here is chain Just Desserts, then chained MST, because then resolving the chain backwards, MST would pop the Decree. Just Desserts would then fire, dealing 500 damage. But again, you know, I'm still learning with this deck. And that was definitely a misplay. Not a misplay that matters in this game here. But yeah, normally, you know, that is what you would do. And that's a sign to show that, like, I am still learning the deck. I'm not the best at burn. There are many other burn players who are much better than me. This koala is pretty good. We do know about the knock, though, but we got to bait out the knock at some point. So we're just going to set that koala. They've got the knock there. So we will lose all our other koalas there. We could have also summoned the koala, taken 700 instead of, you know, 1800. But I figure it's better to bait out the knock because we need ways to get back into the game, like Morphing Jar, for instance. And we have not used up any Morphing Jars. So I feel like it's good to sort of bait out the knock now. Unfortunately, we will take another 1800. Our opponent's going to set one, which is very likely Magician of Faith. The only reason you'd set there instead of attacking is if you've got Magician of Faith. We draw Panda here, and it's kind of awkward given their graveyard because they can get back Pot and draw more cards. But I feel like I have to just clear the Kaiku there. And we could have attacked into the Faith, but then Panda would have dropped down to 1300, been able to hit over by the Kaiku, and we only would have dealt 1400, so I feel like it's better just to clear the Kaiku. Hope they don't draw anything too good here. They're going to pitch Thunder Dragon, which is really bad, given that they can get back the Graceful Charity there. But they don't even have to do that. They've got Reborn, so they can Reborn the Kaiku there, flip up this Faith to Reborn a Thunder Dragon as well. And that's going to be the end of the game here. And, you know, again, if I had saved the Ojama Trio play here for when I had the MST, maybe this would have turned out a little bit differently. But I do think that making that play was the right move at that point. Better burn players than me, let me know in the comments down below if you agree that I should have done that or if I should have waited for the MST. As I do think it was a very big decision, and the choice that I made did cost me the game there. But I'm not sure if it was the wrong choice or not. Again, I'm still very much new at this deck, and I would like tips when, you know, you can give them. And this wasn't the only game I got with the deck. I also have one more that I want to show for y'all, so let's dive into that now. Okay, we got another game against PJ Darkness here. Frequent guests on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to lose the Rock, Paper, Scissors, go second, unfortunately. And this would have been a really good going first hand. Wow. This would have been incredibly good. Unfortunately, our opponent does have a Forceful Sentry, so that's going to be really rough for us. They're going to send back this MST here and leave us with Mirage, Trio, Serpent, and Stealthbird. And honestly, that's okay. This does tell us that they probably have like an MST of their own to pop the Mirage. But I'm fine going for that, especially when we draw a Nightmare Wheel. That's pretty good. We're going to set the Trio, set the Wheel, activate this Mirage, and also we're going to set the Stealth Bird. We can Nightmare Wheel in case they've got a monster that can deal with the Stealth Bird. And we figure that they'll use up the MST on the Mirage here. So it looks like they will indeed do that, hitting the Mirage. Even if they had let that go, we would have been in a pretty good spot with the Mirage, as we got the Serpent, which is a free discard off of it. So yeah, I think it would be fine. They've got a DD Warrior Lady. They're also going to summon out this White Magical Hat here. And we're going to Nightmare Wheel the Warrior Lady there. They're going to pass back to us. We draw Sengate, and I make a slight missequencing here. I want to fire Ojama Trio now, so that way their boards will be locked, so they won't be able to bring out any other monsters to deal with the Stealth Bird. So I flip the Stealth Bird first. That's correct. In case they've got TT, they might fire it here. And I want to get in this 1,000 before they do. But then I set the Sangan, which is a mistake. I should have fired the trio before setting the Sangan. As if they've got TT for the trio, then we can summon out the Sangan attack in for 1,000. So I misplayed there, and if they do have the TT here, I get royally punished. Looks like they do not, so I feel pretty good about that. Their board is locked, and we've got this Stealth Bird here. They can attack into it with the hat, but if they do, then they're taking 700 a turn, which is still pretty decent for us. And also they're taking 500 each turn from that Nightmare Wheel there. So I feel very good about this board. If they do have like Raigeki or something, we do have the Sangan here to search out a card. And we've also got the Serpent to deal with their hat attack. So I feel pretty fine with this setup. Unfortunately, they've got Dark Hole. That's probably the best way they could have had to clear this board, because it clears their own zone locking, the Nightmare Wheel. It clears our board as well. We do get a search off the Sangan, but this is still very, very good for them. And we got to think about exactly what to search. We could search out something like Fiber Jar potentially just to reset the game a bit. But I choose to search out the Witch here because I figure it's good just to get in a bit more damage. If they hit over the Witch, then I can search out the Fiber Jar after that. So I feel like this is ultimately fine. Unfortunately, they get Kaiku. That's going to be a bit annoying for us. So that we'll get in for 18, banish 2, and they'll pass back to us. We draw Ceasefire here, which is pretty okay. If they've got like Knock, the Ceasefire will be able to counter that. So we're going to set the Witch, pass back to them, and unfortunately they've got this DD Warrior Lady, so maybe I really should have searched out the Fiber Jar here. As now we get a bit punished. The DD Warrior Lady hits over the Witch, and now that Kaiku will be able to attack in for 1800. We draw Just Search, which will not help us here. We're going to set the Serpent. Keep the Just Search in hand. I want to bluff that I didn't set Serpent, because they do know about the Serpent. So I want to bluff that I didn't have that, and maybe they'll do something differently. But this is a really bad spot for us, as they can just hit over that with any other monster, then attack in with Kaiku to banish it from our grave. But they may read it as like a Fiber Jar or something like that. Unfortunately, they do indeed summon out a monster and attack in for 18. So they'll be able to banish that Serpent. I don't really have much I can do here. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw Pot, which is really good, but unfortunately they do have Imperial Order, which will shut down the Pot, and that will be the end of the game. So I think if I had searched out Fiber Jar here instead of going for Witch, this game could have been a bit different. They didn't really have any way to deal with that, so I think that would have been probably the better choice to do. I don't know. It's a bit awkward here either way, but yeah, it did cost us the game searching the Witch, so I think we got a little bit greedy there. But again, I'm still learning with the deck, and that is something that you need to know. You need to know when to go for the Fiber Jar versus, sort of getting a little bit greedy and a little bit aggressive. So yeah, a bit awkward, but yeah, we're going to go in to the second game here, and we do have to side in like, the Harpies, the True Nade, etc. We also side in like Desk Walls and stuff like that. But it's a bit awkward if they're on like Decree or Jinzo. That would be really rough for us. This is a pretty decent opening hand. We can set this Desk Wall here, set Secret Battle, set Just Desserts. We want to get in some burn damage before going for the Fiber Jar. So I feel like this is ultimately okay. Our opponent's going to bring out a DD Warrior Lady here, attack into our set Koala, and they're going to think about whether to banish this or not. They're not going to banish it, and they will take 2,300 damage total. That's a really good start here. They're going to set to pass back to us. We draw a Mystical Spades Typhoon, which is pretty good at stopping things like, Decree. So that's really nice for us. We set the Gakugiri Panda here just to get in a little bit more damage. If they also summon out another monster as well, then that's pretty good. I also want to play around if they've got like Raigeki, which is potentially a reason why they wouldn't banish the Koala after hitting in with the Warrior Lady. So I want to save Fiber Jar for when I really need it. And that's why I make this play. They're going to hit in to the Panda here, and they are going to banish that. That's kind of interesting. They'll take 100 there. Set one, set another, fire Mirage, and we're just going to MST the Mirage in the end phase. This is a major misplay on my part. You should always wait till draw phase to MST your opponent's Mirages, because you never know what you're going to draw. So I MST the Mirage now, and immediately after I draw Imperial Order, which is kind of rough because I wanted to MST the Mirage so that way they wouldn't have a way to deal with the Fiber Jar here. But if I hadn't done that, I could have set the Fiber Jar, set this IO to stop waves for them to deal with Fiber Jar. I also had Secret Barrel to deal more damage to them after the Mirage resolved. So I think overall this was a major misplay on my part. I should have waited till the draw phase, seen what I got, seeing the order. I wouldn't have then fired the MST on their Mirage. And as is, I think we're still in an okay spot, but like, this could potentially cost us the game, depending on what they've already got. We're going to set this IO, set the Fiber Jar, pass back to them. They're going to flip this DD Whirly, then go for TT, popping the board. So unfortunately, either way there, we were going to lose our Fiber Jar, as we don't have a way to stop that right now. So maybe it wouldn't have actually mattered, despite the amount of like extra burn damage we could have gotten in there. But yeah, it's kind of rough. We do lose our Dark Hole as well because we kept that in hand. And we draw Panda, so that can clear the White Magical Hat at least. But it's still kind of awkward. Now they're at very low resources, so our Secret Battle is a lot less good. Our Secret Battle could have been really good here, dealing like a fair amount of damage, but unfortunately, you know, we waited, and this is what resulted. They're going to go for Graceful. We've got this Imperial Order. They've got the MST for the Imperial Order, though. That's quite unfortunate. We could have had the read that they had that MST there because they did set it with the Mirage, so yeah, that's really rough. They're going to pitch a Snatch Seal and a Shining Angel. Go for a Call of the Haunted here, targeting the DD Warrior Lady. And if we had sort of played around this a little bit differently, you know, let them have the Mirage, etc., then we could have MST'd that Call of the Haunted. So it just keeps getting worse for us, just because of that misplay that we made. And it does show that like you really need to sort of be firing on all cylinders whenever you do play this sort of deck, as even a minor misplay can really cause you a lot of damage later on. We draw Coffee, not really the best right now. We could potentially Coffee, the lone remaining card in their hand, but we figured their set is likely Magician of Faith. They've got Pot of Greed, they've got Graceful Charity at their disposal, so we want to save the Comfy for that. Also, we're at, you know, relatively a risky position, so I don't want to be bleeding out life points when we don't need to. Opponent's going to flip up this Magician of Faith, add back a Pot of Greed here, go for the Pot of Greed, draw 2, and they're going to bring out another DD Warrior Lady attack in for 3,300. We will indeed take all that, and we're in a really tough spot here. Luckily, our like Secret Barrel and Justers can deal a fair bit of damage, 1,500 off the Justers, and then 1,600 off the Secret Barrel, 3,100 total. But unfortunately, that won't quite be enough for us here to kill them. Our opponent's going to set another pass back to us. We draw Sinister Serpent, won't quite help, but we are going to set that as, you know, if they bring in another monster that in just attacking the Serpent, it's not quite lethal damage yet, potentially. So I figure it's better just to set it here. Our opponent is going to Fire Knock, though, on our Serpent, so that will indeed just be the end of the game. And they're going to bring out a Exiled Force. So yeah, this will be lethal damage, and that's going to be the end of the game. Yeah, we got Justers, we got Secret Barrel, but unfortunately Justers only deals 2,000 here, driving them down to 3,300, and then Secret Barrel deals them, let's see, 1,600. So yeah, wouldn't quite do it here. 1,700 off if we had another Secret Barrel, or I guess we needed another Justers instead. But if we had more Burn Traps, maybe things would have turned out a bit differently here. But yeah, this is very rough for us. And kind of a rough showing for the deck. Now, I did misplay majorly in this game, and I think that actually could have potentially cost us the game. We could have potentially turned the game around, depending on if I had played that a little bit differently. But, you know, it's tough to say, and they would have had a lot more cards off Mirage as well. So it's a bit iffy. I don't know. I think this deck is somewhat fragile, at least in its current build. I think there are definitely ways to optimize this build better. But I sort of wanted to show off the Stealth Bird stuff in the deck. I think showing off the Stealth Bird stuff here was cool, but it also showed that the card isn't really too effective. You can get in 1,000 damage here or there, but it is a bit of a liability. It plays into things like Torrential Tribute, etc. So I don't really like it the most in this sort of deck. I think it would need more of a stally variant of Burn instead. But I hope that you all enjoyed the video despite the misplays here. I wanted to get a duel where I won with Burn, but unfortunately I didn't quite have enough time this week to do it. But, you know, I hope that these games still suffice and scratch that Burn itch. I highly encourage you, if you actually do know how to play this deck, to hop on in to the Discord server, link in the description down below, and, you know, try and tinker with this in Chaos, as I do think that it is something that can potentially rise to maybe be tier 1 in Chaos. It's tough to say. We did see a Chaos Burn deck win a Locals on a previous stream, but that was more Chaos than Burn. So yeah, I don't know. I think there are definitely ways to adapt this to a variety of strategies in the format, and I do think this sort of Jar Burn variant can have its place. It's just kind of tricky to build and pilot. But that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed this sort of content, as always, please do subscribe. It really helps out the channel a lot. If you want to support me directly, I also have a Patreon. And, you know, if you subscribe to the Patreon, then you'll get your name shouted out in these videos. So special thanks to Pork Chop Coon, GMYFS, Rincewind, and Bren Donker. If you want your name shouted out like that, then definitely sign on up for the Patreon. I also have other tiers with different things like, suggesting video ideas and also exclusive videos as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely head on over there. And if you enjoy this sort of content, please do subscribe. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed as always. Until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.